Hi, I'm Emily Ewing, and today I'm joined by the very talented Carol Hodge. Our song Next in Line is out now on my YouTube channel, so you can go and give that a watch and check that out. But yeah, I thought we'd get together again and talk all things music. So hello.
Hello. Yes, good to be here. And we're getting into a chat there before we pressed record, weren't we? About songwriting, and realised we should probably record it because that's what we're here for.
I wanted to know what was the first song you ever wrote and what was it about?
The first song that I ever wrote. The first proper song I ever wrote. I remember when I was about 9, I'd learned that chord sequence. You know the one that goes C, A minor, F, G on piano. Yeah. I'd learnt that, and I remember writing this rock and roll song that was terrible, but probably quite good for an 8-year-old. The first proper song I wrote was a song called "The Needy Ones," which I performed with my first band, Cinco, in 1997, and it was if I listen to it now, I'll probably be like, that's quite good for a 15-year-old. So yeah.
Do you still have it on tape somewhere? Do you still have the song on tape somewhere?
Yeah. You
must find it.
We recorded it. We won a competition to record an EP with a local studio, and that was one of the 4 songs that we recorded and got printed onto cassette and duplicated properly. So that was quite exciting.
Yeah, I was going to say mine was about endangered animals, and we just still have it on tape somewhere as well. It's like, what about the tigers hiding in the grass? Like it was like that, like real, like cringe.
Was it? Did you sing it like that? With the real passion. What about the snakes hiding in the grass? Like that, yeah.
Yeah, Mariah Carey vibes. Yeah, and it's just kind of a bit cringe, really. Because I found it like a couple of years ago, and I was like, oh. But I was only like 10 or even 11.
But it's good, though. It's good that we were both... I mean, what I find really fascinating is I know some musicians who are now in their 40s and I think are incredible musicians who have never written a song and never even written a riff, you know, or a chord sequence. And I just find that quite mind-blowing because I've always written songs. I've always done it, you know, as soon as I learn how to play an instrument or, you know, as soon as I learn how to sing, I've just started doing it.
Yeah, do you remember how early you were when you kind of got an interest in... I know we spoke about it again. It's on your Patreon page, the first one of these, but do you remember how early it was when you was like, I can sing or...
Yeah, I mean, probably when I was at church. So probably maybe about like 7 or 8.
7, yeah. Same.
I started learning, well, it's keyboard first when I was 9. And before that, I'd always sung. I remember always singing with my friends and always singing Harmony. Like, so we'd go on walks in the country because I lived like on the edge of the countryside, and we'd just be walking down like country lanes and we'd sing things like you know, hymns from school, songs from school. Yeah. I remember we were singing "Stand By Me" by Benny King and putting harmonies on. So I get my mate to sing the main line and I put harmonies on.
Yeah.
And that was probably about 8 years old doing that.
It's quite good for 7 though. I remember it's quite good for 7 to be able to kind of be working on harmonies like that young. And did you know that there were harmonies at the time?
It's one of those things, isn't it? It's when you don't know what level you should be at a certain age in education or skill or whatever, and you've got an interest, you just kind of do it, don't you? It doesn't feel like a chore. It's just a thing that you hear. I mean, that's the thing. I've always had a musical ear, so I've always been able to hear songs and figure out how to play them. And I've always been able to hear where harmonies should be.
Yeah.
And I just sort of took that for granted. It's only now that I teach music that I realise not everybody has that, like, natural skill.
Yeah. Do you think it's something that can be, obviously you teach it, so it can be learnt? But is it one of those things that, like, some people just can't learn it, and it just has to be like a natural something in there, you just help it grow, if that makes sense?
I mean, this is a big topic, in my opinion, is can you, particularly with singing, can you teach anyone to sing? And I think the answer is yes, but I think some people are more natural singers than others. Some people are more natural musicians than others, in the same way that some people are more natural mathematicians than others, or you know, tennis players. It's just one of those things. Sometimes people are more innately good at things.
Yeah. Because I think I was going to say, I just remember seeing like Spice Girls when Friends came round and stuff, but I wouldn't even say that I was good or anything, but I know I enjoyed music, and it just kind of developed through the years of trying to write, or again singing with the radio. And I don't know if that helped develop my voice, so I never had any official lessons. Anything like that.
And that's another thing. If you've got music around you at home, you know, I had a radio in my room for as long as I can remember. I used to love listening to the radio and like doing the whole thing with the cassette tape, you know, and you get it ready so that as soon as the announcer stops talking, you press record and you get the song that you want.
Same.
But that, I mean, again, sorry, go on.
I think everyone in the 90s was like, did a similar thing.
Yeah, and just waiting to pounce so that it sounds, you know, you can make your own mixtapes.
Yeah.
But all my friends did that, you know, it was just what we did. And I didn't think of it as being, I just thought it was something that the girls our age did, you know what I mean? It just seemed to be, the thing. It wasn't like, oh, if you're into music, you do that. It was just like, well, you're 10, it's what you do.
Top of the Pops, VHS, not recording that as well on a Friday night.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you a little bit about like when you songwrite your song structure, because I was watching something a couple of days ago about songs that don't have choruses in them, sort of like the White Stripes. You know, the dun 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 dun.
Yeah,
like that riff is the chorus. Mm-hmm. And then there's a structure called like the AABA structure, which is like Yesterday by the Beatles. Like there's a slight change in it, but it's mainly like verses and stuff. So when you write songs, do you have like a typical like verse, pre-chorus, chorus when you write? Or not really?
My sort of method has changed over the last few years, actually, since I started working with Dave, because I realised that if I'm going to be writing albums and recording vocals and piano at home, it's going to make life a lot easier if as soon as I come up with an idea, I record it to a click. And from the very start it's there and it's all been done properly, because it just saves so much time. So I am actually a bit more methodical and a bit more technical when I write songs, and I'm always sat at the piano, sat at the computer. I always record things into Logic, and it's straight away it's all done to a click so that I can build on it at a later date. And with that has come the method of, all right, I've got my intro, cut that, colour it yellow. I've got my verse, cut that, colour it pink, chorus, green, right? And then I've got a template then, and I can play, you know, I can try copying and pasting. So that's what I tend to do. I tend to do, right, okay, well, I've got my first verse. There might be a pre-chorus and then a chorus, or it might just be verse, chorus. And then I'll do that, and I'll know straight away, I need something else there. I can't just do that again. It doesn't work. Sometimes it does. Fine, move on. Does it need a midsection? Try it, see what happens. How we're going to end it, you know. So sometimes I'm like that. I'm just quite, you know, bang, 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 do this, do that. And I think that's quite helpful for me in terms of being productive because I spent years chronically writing a first verse and chorus and then leaving it.
Yeah, I was going to say quite similar. It's only recently that I actually kind of revisit songs that I've written to see if there's things that I can do better. Whereas like when I first started writing, it had to be written there, and then if I couldn't do it, then it wasn't worth carrying on with it. So I've become a bit more, not critical in like a negative sense, but it's kind of like how to better myself as a writer. I mean, do you find yourself doing that as well?
I mean, when I first started writing, I thought that inspiration would strike, that's what happens. You're like, I don't know, reading a book or whatever. Oh, song idea, quickly, run to the piano, record it quickly. Because if you don't get it all out now, that's it, it's over. Whereas now, I'm like, I have allocated times in the week when I sit there and I write. I always have my phone with me, so if I get ideas, I record them into my phone. So I'm always open to like ideas appearing, but I also have times when I sit down and develop those ideas, and I'm not of the superstition anymore that unless I pour it all out in one sitting and capture that essence as it comes out, then the tap's been turned off and it won't be turned on again. I think that tap is there and I can, access it whenever I'm ready.
When you are in the songwriting zone, it is interesting to have heard the songwriters say this. Do you find it, without sounding like a freak, do you find it like a supernatural process where words and melody just go, ugh, or do you have to think about what you're doing when you're actually there in the moment?
Yeah, I love it. This is where it gets exciting. I am of the opinion that there is something supernatural about it. And I think it's why I love it so much. I think there's real magic in writing a song. And I think even if your method is, like I said before, copy and paste, verse, chorus, whatever, that where does that initial idea come from? That's magical, even if you then quite quickly pull it into a structure and make it sensible for someone else to listen to, those initial ideas still come from somewhere. And I find that when I write, because people always ask you, what comes first? Is it the lyrics or is the music? And I find that I very much sit there at the piano, turn a tap on or open something up in my brain or whatever, and both things come through at the same time.
Interesting.
Occasionally, it's like I feel like a conduit. And I feel like I'm not really doing anything. I'm just almost hearing it and it's just coming out.
Yes.
Other times it's kind of like, and I have like go-to words or just like, sounds that I make when I'm coming up with vocals. Sometimes it's proper words that end up being the final lyrics. Sometimes it's just noises that sound like speech intonation.
Yeah, I was going to say, for me, it's a combination of everything, really. I remember one of my old songs, again, you can hear it like on my YouTube channel and stuff, it's called Flight or Fight. And I remember just being in my room and just hearing the opening line, which is, ooh, ooh, ooh. And I was just like, to the piano. And I sort of went, and I just started playing this, like the chords just suddenly came out of nowhere. Sometimes I get a title of a song in my head and it's just suddenly that happens. Or sometimes it is like you have the music, but a melody, you'll hear a melody and words just match. So it is a very strange, I don't think there's any set way to do it really anymore where it comes from, because you can be in the most random places.
Yeah.
Or there are days where you're just like, no, I will sit and write.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
and I think it's, I'm over, I mean, I love it. I mean, some songs just, like I say, almost plop out whole in like half an hour, which is an amazing feeling.
Yeah.
And then other times it's like, okay, well, I've got some bare bones here and I need to keep coming back and looking at it and trying things out. And I think as a songwriter, I think you've got to be open to, like, you've got to have a process, because some days you're not going to be particularly inspired. So you need somewhere to start. You know, you need to write something, even if it's rubbish and you don't use it, you're still benefiting from the process of writing.
Yeah, it's a creative muscle, isn't it? To keep it kind of working. And
yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it. Yeah, like a muscle. The more you work it, the stronger it gets. Absolutely, yeah.
Well, hopefully. And yes, the other question for you: are there any musicians or songwriters that are your inspiration that you can listen to and wanting to make you want to write a song or?
It's
a long list.
Well, it varies so much. I try to listen to as much music as possible, and I try to vary what I listen to as much as possible. So yesterday, I finally got around to listening to St. Vincent's new album.
Ah, right, yeah.
And she is clearly massively influenced by Prince and Michael Jackson in this album. Clearly, so I was just like, it's almost like spot the influence. I like playing spot the influence when you're listening to other musicians as well, when you were listening to other songwriters. So yeah, and that's I think when you're a songwriter, you're constantly drawing inspiration from everything that you listen to.
Yeah.
And it might be in terms of like the vibe of a song. It might be a particular lyric that pulls your ear. It might be a hook, or it might just be I'm very much at the moment. I feel like my brain is more and more open to arrangement ideas. So I'm kind of, when I'm writing, I'm often hearing like, well, what could a guitar do here? Yeah. How would it fit in with that piano? Well, if I bring that in, do I need to change the piano? Like, where's the on and off beat going to be with the kick and the snare? So at the moment, I'm thinking more holistically when I'm writing as well, which is quite, again, is a new step for me. Rather than thinking like piano and vocals, there's a song, bang. I'm already thinking to recording the album and thinking, well, what else is going to be going on there? So that's quite cool. I'm really enjoying that.
Yeah. So I'm very much. It's hard to explain, but like I prefer songs over particular bands or artists, if that makes any sense at all. Like, I think I love Queen and Freddie Mercury, but that's not necessarily mean that every song they've written is that I'm like, oh my God, over just because I'm a fan of them. And there's some artists like I think Harry Styles, again, don't have the album, but he's come out with some fantastic songs, and it's about the song for me and the melody that kind of strikes me. So
not being snobbish about who's performed it or who's produced
I think
it
a good song's a good song. It's like with genres, like I'm not just like this pigeonholed into one.
Yeah.
I don't look like I like Slipknot, but they've got some fantastic songs.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that every song's great or I'm gonna
And I think that's really important. I love classical music. I like jazz. I like death metal.
Musical theatre.
I like all kinds of music, and I think that's really important to do that when you're a songwriter, especially if you're a singer songwriter like we are. If you're trying to create something that is a reflection of you. You're not writing for someone else. You're just it's what's going on in your own experience. The only thing I am actually quite snobby in a way. I'm snobby about, and I think you posted on social media about this the other day. When you hear a song on the radio, and it's a good song, it's full of hooks, it's like really well written, great performance, whatever. And then you look at who wrote it, and there's like 6 names on there.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, that brings me to my next question.
Yeah.
But before I get into that, I was going to say I also love songs that have songwriters in them that you don't know have written them. So they're not the artist. So I love people like Diane Warren and Bonnie McKee and Max Martin, who was massive behind Britney Spears and the Backstreet Boys back in the day. So I'll just refer to my notes because it does go back to tying into what you've just said. There was an article that I read on Wednesday from rollingstones.com and I've posted it on my music Facebook page for anyone that wants to check it out. And it was basically saying that 4% of the top 50 hits over the last couple of years were only written by one person, so one solo songwriter, and the rest have been written by a team of up to 5 people or more. And I was also watching something a while ago, a very famous songwriter was saying actually you can't write a hit anymore without a team of people behind it. It's quite rare that it's, again, just one songwriter. Yes, I just wanted to know how it made you feel that it's considered more viable to write as a team than just by yourself.
Yeah, I'm intrigued as to what role do all these people play in the songwriting? Because my logic would tell me, and this is how I always wrote when I've been in bands from being a teenager onwards, it was like, okay, I've written a song on piano with vocals, right? And now we're in rehearsal. What's the drummer going to add to it? What's the bassist going to add?
Yeah.
What's the guitarist going to add? Is the keyboards going to change because of what they've added? So I've kind of historically worked in that way. So I could see that, you could credit each of those musicians in the songwriting process. Yes. But from what I've read, it's actually when they have these, songwriting like in-house at Sony or whatever, they will have they'll have like 2 people working on the lyrics, 2 people working on the top line, the melody, vocal melody, and then you'll have somebody on beats. And it's just, there just seems to be a lot of people involved for something that one person could do quite well on their own. I don't know.
Yeah. It's interesting because I was going to say, I have on occasion Googled like who is involved in the song and who's on it. And people like Beyonce have up to 8 writers. And like you said, it's kind of like, well, who's exactly doing what? But I have heard stories that all someone has to do is put in a word or change a word and you automatically will get put down as a co-writer. Yeah. But I'm not sure how true that is.
And I think there is a bit of a dodge, isn't there? There's a bit of a loophole where people are like, oh, well, I want some royalties. So say I wrote it, like say if they added a couple of words or one little piece of the melody or whatever. But yeah, I just I don't have any aspirations to have a hit pop song anyway, so it doesn't really bother me in that respect. But I just find it it's almost like I used to be a classroom teacher, and it was at a further education college, and my colleague and I went on this course, and we realised that we were delivering these qualifications, these diplomas, and we realised we were doing like 6 people's jobs. Like we were supposed to have all these other members of staff working on the course with us and doing all the marking and all the moderation and everything with us, and they weren't. We were just doing it on our own. It's just like, how come everyone else has got like 6 people doing this job and it's just me doing it? It kind of feels like that.
Well, I was going to say, does it make you feel less hopeful to get? I suppose it depends if you want to get into mainstream, like major like labels in that territory. If you have to write with a team of people. Does it make you feel a little like...
I'm not really interested in that. But, I have an equivalent of that, and it's working with a producer, because that makes a big difference. If you've got a really good producer, which we have in the form of Dave Draper, that's kind of similar to what I just said about the band process. It's like I'll come to the studio and I'll have a song on piano and vocals, and sometimes it'll pretty much stay piano and vocals, and then other times it's like, well, this is our starting point, and I might have already written a guitar riff to go with it, or a bass line, or know what the drum groove's going to be, or it might just be a complete blank slate, and it's only through working with a producer that you get an end product that's a full song. It's the same chords and vocals, but what the instrumentation does can really make or break it. So do you know, when you write a song, do you know
what instruments you want on it then? It's kind of basically what you've kind of just touched on, but you do write parts for guitar or bass.
Yeah,
Do you have that in
increasingly
mind?
so. Yeah. And I think this for my next album, I'd like to, basically come to the studio with as much as possible, really. So I have, because I find that really interesting at the moment, arrangement and how all the instruments work together, and how that helps communicate the life of the song, really. So yeah, and some songs that I've done in the past, sometimes I'm like really clear, like it's going to be like this, and other times I'm like, don't know what this one is yet. So it kind of reveals itself in the process.
Well, I think the production, when like we do go to record, is still very much part of the writing process. I don't know if that's something you agree on. Like, I don't think many people would go into a studio and they're like, well, that's it. There has to be some change and open-mindedness.
Yeah, and I think that's the... I think that's a lot easier when you're a solo singer-songwriter.
True. Yeah.
And you're
true.
not a band.
Band politics, yeah.
Yeah. And which is fair enough, because, in that, it's sort of like you've already done all that process if you're in a band. You've already decided how the bass and guitar are going to fit together, and, where the drum groove's going to change and everything. So you've already worked on a song up until a point that you've probably been playing it live for a while as well before you go in the studio. But when you perform as a solo artist, it's a bit different. Yeah, it's a different beast.
Very true. And is there anyone that's alive or dead that who would be your dream co-writer or collaborator? Ooh.
Good question. And I can't narrow it down to one person. But I think that question, it's often who did you look up to when you were younger?
Yeah.
Who was influential on your, because I think when you're a teenager in particular, I think that really shapes your the music you listen to when you're a teenager really shapes your personality and your outlook.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a top 5 just off the top of my head.
Go on.
Right, David Byrne from Talking Heads, Cyndi Lauper, Billie Joe Armstrong from Green Day, David Bowie, and Freddie Mercury. There you go.
Yay! Yeah, Freddie has to be done. I can't really think of mine. I think mine again goes back to what I was saying, would be people like Bonnie McKee, Diane Warren and Max Martin, Freddie. The artists that I'd like to sing my songs.
Yeah.
Anything like WoW. I've always thought from when I was little to have a song on Disney, like in a Disney film, at the end of credits. That would be really cool. But just other songwriters, really. I know we've collaborated on something together, and just keep doing that, really.
Yeah. Do you find it? What's the difference then for you between working on your own and then working from the outset? Have you done much of that, working from the outset with another songwriter?
Both very interesting. What I like about collaborating with people is they do challenge what I'd normally, and that's not in a negative way, that's in like a positive way, where they'd kind of, I wouldn't write that. And it makes you rethink. Whereas you just put, not in a lazy way, but you just put what you think sounds good, and then you got someone else listening to it and they're like, no. And you sort of grow as a writer, and different genres, different instruments. I've worked with people like Robert Lane, whose primary instrument is guitar.
Yeah.
So that's completely different, and that almost unlocks another part of your creative brain as well, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
And yourself as well. Like, I love what you brought to our song Next in Line as well. Like the piano, and you played stuff quite differently, and just how I wouldn't, because I can't really play piano, but yeah, just it's phenomenal. Just but with myself, I don't know, because I think you just get used to how you write stuff, and I love just songwriting. But yeah, with collaborating with people, I think it's enjoyable. I like doing it.
Yeah.
What do you find?
I think it sometimes highlights. I think it's quite easy to get. It just goes back to what I was saying about how it's important to listen to loads of different types of music as well.
Yes.
It's quite easy to get stuck in a bit of a rut, and you have, you know, when you write quite a lot, you develop sort of habits and go-tos, and like, you know, you build up a toolkit of ideas that you sort of, you know, you have certain templates.
You'll go to,
that can get a little bit tired sometimes. And then when you work with someone else, their set of templates and their toolkit is different to yours, then you just hear things like, oh God, I never would have thought of that. And they'll probably hear the same in what you do, because you sort of think of it as just being instinct and being obvious, but it's not. It's very, I mean, obviously a certain amount of it is, because it's things like, well, what is going to sound melodic and what chords are going to fit together. There's, you know, music theory is obviously involved with that. But in terms of, what you would go to in terms of rhythm and melody and cadence and dynamics, it's very much a personal thing. I think it's quite interesting to see other people in action and see what their instinct is.
Yeah, one of the greatest things I think I learned was editing lyrics. Like, again, it was like when I write for myself, it just is what it is. But since I have been collaborating and co-writing for a number of years, I used to be quite wordy with lyrics. Mm-hmm. But like, I was taught to, well, you go back and you'd either change words or how can you shorten something. So it's not, depending on obviously like the rhythm and what the song is, of course, but it's just to go back and reread what you've written. And
I think that's an interesting one. Is to, like I was saying, sometimes it plops out whole and you don't want to mess with it too much. And then other times it's like, you just know you're going to have to edit this one loads. You're going to have to just keep going over it and trying different things until you get something that makes sense. And on the last album I did, I actually made a concerted effort, because I'm kind of, I think sometimes I'm a bit too oblique and a bit too wordy. So on my last album, I deliberately tried to have songs that where the lyrics just were more like what came out initially and were more simple's the wrong word, but were just really accessible.
Yeah.
You know, not too poetic and, you know, jarring or unusual or like cerebral, just saying what you mean.
I like that. I mean, are there any genres that you would not write in or collaborate on? Is there something that you just like it, or you're willing to just give it all a go?
I think it would depend on the people involved as opposed to the genre. You know, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I mean, I've done all kinds of stuff. You know, I've sung on like dance songs and musical theatre stuff. Anything. I'm quite open, to be honest. But yeah, it would, if the song itself made me go, oh.
I mean, would you like to produce like your own album? Oh, because I was also going to say that, correct me if I'm wrong, but this new album you've got coming out, you wanted it to be more produced pop-wise than other stuff. Is that correct, or am I?
Yeah. So this is the crippling space between the album, which is out next month. So yeah, I wanted to spend more time on each song. I mean, there's some songs were just sort of easy to produce. Some of them were staying quite stripped back, piano, vocals based.
Yeah.
And then others I wanted to play around a bit more, with like, you know, can we make it sound really poppy, and can we jam in as many hooks as possible, you know? So just kind of exploring really, and just having fun with what's possible.
Yeah.
I think that's important as well.
Yourself?
Sorry, go on.
No. Would you get into production yourself? Would you like to produce like your own album or other people's albums, or are you okay with just bringing the songs to?
I like the idea of being given a song from someone else that's just, piano and guitar or piano and vocals, and coming up with producing it and adding instruments and giving it a vibe sort of thing. I quite like that idea. I mean, I wouldn't be. I think I'd be all right. I'm good at the ideas, but I'm good at recording to a certain level. But in terms of thinking about EQ and how to get a mix to sit right, and what effects to use and how to balance them all out, that's, when we get into maths territory, that's a bit too technical for me.
Yeah. I like arranging like vocals and stuff. That's something that I've recently noticed that I like to do. Like when you're in the recording process and you're like, how about this note instead of, or this harmony? Like I really like that. But like you said, when it comes to mixing or EQ or what.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not very good at like other instruments either. So
it's a real skill. It's a real talent, and it's an art form in itself. So I feel that if I was like, I've produced my own album, and that basically meant I've recorded it into Logic and used all the presets and used a mastering program or whatever.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of doing a bit of an injustice to someone like Dave, who's a proper producer, who can hear how exactly what needs to happen with a mix, and has a skill with that.
See, well, it goes back to kind of what we were saying. I think that's almost supernatural in itself as well. When people can hear like a plug-in or something, or this rhythm to match, and they don't sound the same, but they work.
Oh yeah, and it's such a. I mean, Dave will hear things that I'll have heard a song 20 times and not heard it before. Picked it out the detail that he's like, what? It's a real, really finely tuned ears, and like you say, just it's a really creative process as well. It's a creative skill. Yeah,
it is. Yeah. Well, that's all the questions I have. It's like, anything to add? You're like, no.
But yeah, I mean, I really dig that. What about you? Where do you fall on the idea of what is music? Like, where do ideas come from? Do you ever sit there and sort of try and channel things, or do you just wait for the inspiration? Or
I'm a bit naughty in the sense that I do often than not will wait for the mood. But more so now, I will make myself sit and write something, and often you do get quite decent songs come out. But it's I don't really enjoy forcing the process either, because then you kind of get frustrated with yourself, and then you're not. A bit like what we touched on when we last spoke. Then there's the whole I'm not good enough, and it starts that whole thing. So I like to kind of be ready to do it, but there has been often proof that if you make yourself kind of sit and do it in the right mood, that stuff can come that way as well.
Yeah, and like I say, even if on those days when you're not in the right mood or what you think is the right mood, but you just treat it as an exercise, it's still useful, to do something. So
the creative muscle. And also, do you have any updates? Vinyl, still waiting.
Yeah, still waiting for the vinyl. Yeah.
Oh no.
Hoping it's going to be here. Well, I was told next week. So
okay, great.
fingers crossed that'll happen. But yeah, we shall see.
I'm looking forward to hearing it in all its glory.
Yeah, I can't wait to get hold of it. Yeah, I think it all becomes. If you've ever had an album on vinyl, that you've done, yeah.
I've been on albums that have been vinyl.
Yeah.
Like session singing.
Yeah.
But not my own.
Yeah.
But not mine, no. It's a
yeah,
great different sound, isn't it, altogether? It's like a different process to get it sorted out, right? Because it's like the pressing. It's a different process to getting a CD together, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's a lot more involved. I mean, you need to have a separate vinyl master as well, so the levels and the mastering's different. And then it's just, I mean, I got my CDs arrived ages ago, but I'm still from the same company, and I'm still waiting for the vinyl. Partly because of Record Store Day and big labels who get 20,000 albums pressed.
Yeah.
They end up jumping the queue, and little people like me who are getting three figures worth of vinyl made. Get pushed to the back.
Oh yeah. So what I'll do at the bottom of this chat is I'll list our socials,
cool,
media pages. So if anyone wishes to follow us and check out our music, they can do that. And as I said at the beginning of this, our collaboration, our song Next in Line,
absolutely,
is out there to watch on this YouTube channel.